Good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar on student finance. I'm Jane Goodwin and I'm the Area Services Manager at the charity specialising in money advice. I'm joined today by Hannah Barnes, Young People Programme Manager at the Money Charity, who will be hosting the webinar. Thank you for joining us. Before we start, I'd just like to tell you a little bit about the charity. Can we start?
Go back.
Good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar on student finance. I'm Jane Goodwin and I'm an Area Services Manager at the charity specialising in money advice. I'm joined by Hannah Barnes, Young People Programme Manager at the Money Charity, who will be hosting today's webinar. Thank you for joining us. Before we start, I'd like to just tell you a little bit more about the charity in case you've not worked with us or come across us before. We exist to serve the lifelong civil service community. All serving former or retired civil servants and their dependents can seek the charity's help at any time. There is no need to donate to be eligible for our help, but it's great if you do, and there are many ways you can. We are not a membership organisation. Our vision is a lifelong community of people offering effective support for each other when life takes a turn for the worse. We offer a range of services and support which include money advice, support for wellbeing and mental health, financial support for those who are eligible, and support for carers. We do this online via our digital tools and also have a team of caseworkers who can provide one-to-one support and advice throughout the regions. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Hannah Barnes. Thank you, Hannah.
Today, we're going to be looking at student finance and covering the basics on what you need to know for your young person. To give you some background information about the Money Charity, the Money Charity is a national financial capability charity providing financial education, information and advice to young people and adults across the UK. We provide educational workshops to 11 to 19-year-olds across the country. We also produce a student money manual, an essential guide for student finance and managing money whilst you're at university, as well as supporting adults and workplaces on the basics with financial guidance. We believe that everybody should have the skills, knowledge, attitudes and behaviours to make the most of their money and set them up for life. Today's webinar, we're going to be looking at these objectives: the student finance package, tuition-free maintenance loans and how to apply, university costs, what to budget for and where to compare the location costs, loan repayments, how much is owed and when does it need to be paid, university bank accounts, and supporting your young person throughout all of this. I'm aware that today we may have some listeners and participants from across the UK, and for that reason I won't go into specific detail around the different requirements across your home countries. There will be lots of signposting with a few links at the end of the presentation for you to self-direct to. So on the screen, you'll be able to see 3 areas that I'd like you to think about whether or not they are true or false. So looking at the purple bubble, the amount of money you get depends on how much your parents or guardians earn. This is true, and we're going to be covering that on a later slide. You have to start repaying your loans from the December after you graduate. This is false, and again we're going to be covering that as you start repaying your student loan once you meet a threshold on your annual salary. And lastly, there are no bursaries and grants available outside of student finance. Again, this is false, and we are going to briefly cover what a university student may also be able to gain or have as a separate fund to their student finance package. So the student's finance package consists of 3 key areas. tuition fee loan, maintenance loan, and a maintenance grant. And some of you may be thinking, what are the difference between these? So your tuition fee covers the fee for deciding to study at university and is payable directly to the university themselves. A maintenance loan, this is a loan for living costs and costs associated with uni, and how much you get will depend on when you start the course, where you live, and your household income. This leads me on to the maintenance grants. There are grants for living costs which don't need to be repaid, and the amount that you may receive within your maintenance grant again depends on your household income and when you start the course. Tuition fee loans. You'll be able to read that I've put here tuition fee loans are not means tested, and what that means is that your household income does not depend on how much you can receive. How much a student can be eligible for is dependent on where they live and where they decide to study. And to demonstrate that, I've just outlined on the slide, you'll be able to see what a university student may be able to receive. It is worth noting here that these change year on year. So if you have a student that isn't going to university this year, but is thinking about it next year, these figures may change. And it is worth keeping up to date with the UCAS website for any changes. A maintenance loan. Maintenance loans are means tested. Essentially, what your household earns will affect how much of a maintenance loan is received if applying for the full allowance. There is a basic rate maintenance loan, which is not means tested. If you are applying for the full maintenance loan, then this is where means testing will come in. And you're probably thinking, what will I need to provide for this application? Because you as a parent or carer or guardian will need to submit some information to support your student's application. So what will you need to provide? You'll need to provide financial details for the last full tax year prior to the application, and that is a combined household income. So whoever resides at that house and earns a salary, that information will need to be given. And again, it needs to be updated yearly for each year that your student is at university. You'll be able to see here a rough idea on costs, dependent on what you are earning, whether your young person is living at home or away from home, and how much they may be entitled to. You may also not be aware that the maintenance loan is paid termly to a student and directly to a student, and that entitlement will need to be spent and budgeted for the 3 months in advance. So we're going to come on to that in a minute in the next slide. But how could you get more finance while studying at university? And there are other options out there for you to explore, whether it be a bursary, a scholarship, grants, or other allowances. There are websites again, such as UCAS, that can direct you to what you may be entitled to and where you need to apply. Some of these are direct with the university, and it may be worth checking the university site to see what they can offer. So, thinking about university costs, which of these will a student not pay for? Bit of a trick question there for you, as they will be paying for all of these whilst they're at university. Accommodation, travel, textbooks, foods, and the graduation ceremony costs are all areas that a university student will be required to pay for. You'll be able to see now that I can direct you towards 2 different budget building and student budget calculators that may help a university student work out exactly how much they will need to budget for while studying at university. The student budget calculator is a online platform where you can directly look at a university and think about what the cost may be while studying at that location. And the budget builder is a money charity platform which is online and also downloadable app where a university student can not only set a budget but track how they are spending against that budget. It's also worth noting here, thinking early really about any savings that that young person may be able to contribute towards their expenditure whilst at university. So whether or not they have a job that maybe they can be putting some money aside for, or as well whilst they are at university, thinking about how they can make some small savings. Continuing with the university costs, you'll see now on the slide here is just an outline. These are not 100% accurate, but an outline of how much university may be for a university student across two different areas. So looking at London and the North. And you'll see here that there are some significant differences, primarily across the rent and also food and socialising. And these are, key areas that a university student will need to bear in mind when they're thinking about budgeting, planning, and also saving their maintenance loan. I'm now showing you some clips direct from our student money manual from university students themselves about ways in which they themselves have saved money. So thinking around being savvy with your consumerism, not being afraid to buy the cheaper brands at the supermarket, cooking and buying in bulk, avoiding the little convenience stores, and also buying textbooks and university resources in advance before they become higher in demand and therefore with the higher price tag. Looking at repayments, key questions that are asked: do all loans need to be repaid? Who do we repay? When do loans get repaid? Is it repaid in a one-off sum or monthly? And how long does it get repaid for? These are common questions that are asked when it comes to the repayment of a student loan. And I think here it's important to note that yes, loans do need to get repaid. Your tuition fee and maintenance loan do get repaid. If you have been entitled to and given a grant, grants are not repayable. It is your tuition fee and maintenance loan that gets repaid. You can see here on the graph, just as an outline really, the average higher education repayments across the UK and the trend of how they've been and where they currently sit. It is also important as well to note to you that student loans are only repayable when the salary of that student has reached a particular threshold. That's currently at just under £26,000. If you are earning under £26,000, you do not and will not start paying back your student loan. It's only when you have reached and are earning over that threshold. Once you've met that threshold, a university student will pay 9% of their income towards their student loan. And you'll be able to see now on the screen roughly what that equates to with the salaries down the left-hand side and how much their monthly repayment will be. Is this repaid one-off? In a one-off sum or monthly? Well, no, hopefully I've answered that already. It is something that's deducted from your monthly salary, again, once you are earning at or above the threshold. And your university student repayments will get paid up until, well, it's essentially wiped after 30 years after you have completed studying. It's important to submit and keep the student loans company up to date with your movements. If you're moving abroad or looking to work abroad after graduating, they will need to know, as this may affect how much you pay, if anything. Now looking at student loans and interest. Again, these interest rates on the current student loans may not be the same for future students that are thinking about studying, but I think it's important to note that there is interest that is accrued on a student loan whilst they're studying at university, and up until the April after leaving, the interest on that student loan is 6.3%. From the from the April after leaving the course until the loan is repaid is looking again at 6.3, and failure to correspond to the student loan company is 6.3% regardless of your salary. So there it's really highlighting the importance of keeping the student loan company up to date with how much you're earning and if there are any movements that you may take abroad. Bank accounts. Bank accounts for an undergraduate will often come with the following: 0% overdraft, overdrafts, credit checks, and it's also important to shop around and ensure that you switch from an undergraduate to a graduate account once you have left university. Credit checks here will go on for a student applying, although they may not have much information behind a credit check. They will have one done, and it's important here that student loans won't affect the credit score rating of an individual. However, not having an up-to-date address on the electoral roll will. And that's really important because you'll find that a university student will move year on year for the years that they're studying. And if your electoral roll is not updated with the current address, that will affect your credit rating as a student. And I think it is also important to shop around for your student account, okay, and looking at what information you can get for the accounts that are out there and what is best for the situation and the environment that that student is going to be in. You'll find that some accounts will have extensions year on year on their overdrafts, and by that I mean it is tiered. So in the first year, you may find that a bank account will offer a £1,000 overdraft, and then moving on to £2,000 in the second year and £3,000 in the third year. But it is important here that not all accounts may offer that, and it is important to do your research before. Supporting your young person and signposts here for you to follow up on after this webinar. You'll see here that there are some websites and direct links that you can look up. There are two for the money charity. The first one being our student money manual, which can be purchased online as well as downloaded. And that's a really key document for any young person thinking about or studying at university. The Money Charity Budget Builder, which I have mentioned again, you can either create an account online or download the app. And that is a platform that enables a young person to create a university budget and track their spending against that budget on a weekly basis. UCAS, Save the Student, and the government websites, as well as the Money Saving Expert and the Complete University Guide, are all websites and applications that you can use to gather information around the university package, the loans, the repayments, the rates, and so on, that are specific to your location across the UK. They are also all very good websites to keep up to date with any changes that may happen and that may influence and impact a university student's application. Thank you for joining today. I hope you found this useful.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Again, we hope that you found this webinar useful. If you would like to see what other webinars we are able to offer, please check our website at www.foryoubyou.org.uk under Digital Tools, Help and Advice Webinars. Thank you.